Before we jump into the message this morning, it's the third Sunday of the month. We usually take this opportunity to highlight missions. Last month, we talked about TTI, the Timothy Initiative, and our church planting project overseas, planting churches in places where people have never heard the gospel. And for $300, we can plant a new church and train up leaders in a third world country. Well, last month we took a special offering on Pentecost Sunday, and obviously God was moving on the hearts of the people of this church. And throughout the month, money continued to come in. We sent a check this week to TTI, the Timothy Initiative, for $23,000 and some change. Give God glory. Praise the Lord. Every one of those dollars will go towards planting a church in a place where people have never even heard the name of Jesus. So you are a part of that, and we are a part of that. So thank you for your faithfulness to the cause. This month, we're taking our missions from overseas to right here at home. And we want to talk for just a moment about the men and women from Albany Adult and Teen Challenge. You guys right here. Give it up for the guys and girls. So before I give my little spiel here, we called these guys for some help up at Bethel, Saratoga this week. We had a couple hundred square feet of tile that needed to be knocked out, and a bunch of you guys were there. And let me tell you, they are beasts. In just a couple hours, we got it done. I say we. You did it. It wasn't me. I mean, I was there. In a couple hours, we got it done. And I just want to thank you guys. Pastor Vic, thank you for sending the crew. Guys, we appreciate it. We could not have done it without you, and certainly not as quickly as you got it done. So thank you so much for coming and helping us out with that. This morning, amen. This morning, I want to just throw it out to you. Albany Adult and Teen Challenge, they're having their annual golf tournament. I don't know if anyone here is into golf, whatever. This is a great opportunity to raise some money for an awesome cause. If you are interested in either playing or, better yet, in sponsoring, being a T sponsor or a T-sign sponsor for one of the holes, what a great cause. This ministry, and we get to see miracles here. And we're blessed in second service because you guys come and you attend at second service. There's just a couple rows here of lives changed by the saving and delivering power of Jesus. Amen. And this ministry is on the front lines, actively helping people break the chains of addiction in their lives and changing their course for eternity. That's pretty good stuff. So we're excited that we get to partner with them. This tournament is a big fundraiser for them. So if you are interested, you see the website on the screen behind me. Okay, I said it in faith. Go ahead, click on that. You can register. If you're interested in sponsoring, stop by the welcome desk. We got some packets there for you. Also, there's a table out in the foyer. If you have any questions, ask Pastor Vic or one of the guys. Great opportunity to have a fun day, good meal, play some golf, and raise money for an incredible, incredible cause and an incredible group of men and women. So thank you, guys from Teen Challenge, ladies from Teen Challenge, and church. Go ahead and check that out on your way out today. So we are talking parables. And if you've been paying attention, and some of you have, and you'll know if you have in just a moment, in the last couple weeks, this is our third week talking about the parables of Jesus, you may have noticed a trend. On Sunday morning, as I'm sharing on a parable, in children's church, Pastor Nayleen is sharing the same parable with your kids. Now, I'm not going to ask you if you noticed. That's okay. And then midweek, one of our youth sponsors from Fuel Youth, they're doing an Instagram Live on the same parable for our youth. And then every Thursday night, Facebook Live, Pastor David has been doing a family devotional. Anybody want to guess the topic? Yeah, the same parable. Why? We want to lay a groundwork for you through this summer, mom, dad, teens, kids, together to gather around the dinner table, watch a devotional, and talk about what God is teaching you. A family kind of approach. So all summer long, not just in our service, with the kids, with the youth, then every Thursday, Facebook Live, there's an opportunity for all of us to kind of come together with our kids, with our families, have some family devotional time, and grow together in the Lord. So if you were paying attention, you already caught on to that. Just in case you missed it, we'll let you know, okay? So, parables of Jesus. All summer long, we're looking at these incredible teachings of Jesus. All of them are hard-hitting. All of them are powerful. Many of Jesus' teachings were controversial. They did not line up with the prevalent thought and teaching of the day. And because, for this reason and many more, when people would listen to Jesus, the response was often, he teaches with authority. Now, we can say a lot about authority and dive into that word, but that's not really the main point. The thing for you and I to remember is this. When Jesus speaks, there is authority in his word. There was authority then, and there's authority in his words for us here, now, today, and he is the final authority for all eternity. Jesus teaches some stuff, and this is weird, interesting. A lot of the stuff he taught was really offensive. Like, he called people out on stuff all the time. He didn't candy coat it. He talked about heaven and hell. He talked about finances, which we will a little bit today. He pointed stuff out. And you would think preaching such a hard message, no one would show up, but they kept coming because the people were hungry to hear a word from God with authority that can change their lives. This parable of Jesus today is coming from Luke chapter 12, and it's the parable of the rich fool. Luke 12, the parable of the rich fool. If I was a better pastor, I would have put off the money sermon till after baby dedication week. Think it through, Steve. But here we are. And this is a great parable where Jesus talks not about money, he talks about heart issues. He talks about matters of the heart, and I will say this repeatedly this morning. This is spiritual. Some people don't like to talk about money and finances. I love to talk about money and finances. Money's great. Money's fun. I like money. I enjoy having more money than I would having less money. If all of these things sound incredibly unspiritual to you, you haven't read the book. Jesus talks about this. And it's not about our stuff, but it's about our heart and who has our heart. So last week we did the parable of the sower. I had the opportunity to preach at Bethel Northside last week with Pastor Dan Hudson and his wife Tasha, and the kids were there, and we had a great time. And Pastor David, thank you for covering the pulpit here, and we both preached on the parable of the sower. Before I jump into Luke 12, I just want to show you one verse from last week's parable to kind of intro what we have for today. You don't have to turn there. I'll put it on the screen. It's from Matthew chapter 13, and it's verse 22. This is part of the parable of the sower. Hopefully you remember this from last week. Jesus says this, "Now he who received seed among the thorns is he who hears the word. And the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful." And we heard this last week, and we talked about it and bearing fruit, and we get all that. But there's just this one phrase in that text that I find really interesting. Jesus says the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches. Deceitfulness, why? Because it's a problem, and many times we don't know it's a problem. Deception. The cares of this world. Well, what would you list under the cares of this world? Well, we have, health situations. That would be a care of this world, right? House situations, housing stuff, making sure everything's taken care of there. That's a care of this world, right? Gas prices, probably attached there. Having your vehicle, making sure the vehicle's running properly. That's a care of this. When you get a flat tire, heaven and earth are not shaken. It is not an eternal issue. It's a pain in the neck, but it's a care of this world, right? And health matters, family matters. Those are a care of this world. And we would add in with all of that finances, right? Finances would certainly apply as a care of this world. But Jesus separates it. Jesus could have just said care of this world, and we would have said, oh yeah, that includes finances, right? That would make sense. But he didn't. He separates it out and he emphasizes, of all the list of cares, especially this one, the deceitfulness of riches. Because when you read the Gospels, you find out Jesus doesn't just talk about this once or twice. He talks about this a lot. Because our attitudes towards finances, it's spiritual. It's not about how much you have. It's not about how much you don't have. But it's about our heart. And Jesus teaches us this repeatedly. In Matthew, he tells us you can't serve two masters. You'll love one and hate the other. You'll cling to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. This is a common thread in the teaching of Jesus. So in Luke chapter 12, we get the parable of the rich fool. And Jesus didn't just teach it, there's a situation that kind of brought it to the surface. So we're in Luke chapter 12. I'm going to start in verse 13. We're going to read the situation a little bit. We're going to read Jesus' response, and then we get the parable that he teaches us. Luke chapter 12, verse 13. Then one from the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or an arbitrator over you?" And Jesus said, "Take heed and beware of covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses." Verse 16, then he spake a parable to them, saying, "The ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do? I have no room to store my crops. So he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build greater ones. And there I will store all my crops and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry." Verse 20. But God said to him, "Fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you have provided?" Jesus wraps it up in verse 21. "So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God." So let's unpack this parable, this teaching of Jesus a little bit. And remember, folks, it's spiritual. We're not talking money today so we can have a special offering. The ushers are not coming up. We're not raising money for the City Mission or TTI or Albany Teen Challenge today. They wouldn't be opposed to that, but we're not doing that today. This morning, this is spiritual. This is about heart conditions. This is for every single one of us to look inside and make sure our hearts are right. Our hearts are right before God. So the verse starts off, and to give you a little context, Jesus is there preaching. And it seems to be an excerpt from the Sermon on the Mount that Luke records here. And in just a few verses previously, Jesus is talking about how God takes care of the sparrows. He feeds the birds of the air. He's going to take care of you. So Jesus was already on the topic of God's going to provide for you. You'll be all right. Then one from the crowd blurts out, and I can tell you as a public speaker, we love blurters, hecklers, says, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance." Now, on the surface, it seems like a pretty sane request. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. If you do a little deeper dive and you study the Jewish culture, the way things were set up were like this. The oldest brother would receive 2/3 of the inheritance. The younger brother would only receive 1/3. So here, apparently, we have a younger brother asking Jesus, "Hey, half. Tell him I should get half." This right off the heels of Jesus teaching, hey, you don't need to worry about that. God takes care of the birds. He'll take care of you. Half, Jesus. Jesus, tell my brother I want half, not my third. I want half. So Jesus sees this, and he's going to respond to him. And this is interesting because here's what the man didn't say. "Jesus, show me some more so I could follow you." "Jesus, what must I do for eternal life?" Because some people came to Jesus and asked that question. "Jesus, how could I honor God more in my life?" None of these were his questions. His only thing was a statement. He didn't even ask Jesus a question. He told him what to do. He said, "Half. Jesus, tell him I want half." And as I read this passage, something jumped off the page to me. And it's something that repulses me, and I know it repulses many of you as well. But this is 2,000-something years ago, and we see someone who heard the teaching of Jesus, and his first thought was, how can I manipulate this teaching for my financial gain? 2,000 years later, the same garbage is happening. People who will take the teachings of Jesus, and they don't want to serve him. They don't want to be his disciple. They don't want to grow in their faith. How can I use this to get ahead financially? How can I leverage Jesus to feed my greed problem? Now, today, I believe that happens all the time, but to think 2,000 years ago, some farmer on the countryside of Galilee was like, "Jesus, half. Tell him I get half." Using Jesus for financial gain. Well, listen, I don't know what you've been taught, and there's a lot of faces here I don't know that well. I want you to know today, Jesus is not a way to an end. He's not a means to wealth and riches and prosperity. And if you've been taught otherwise, they lied to you and they are wrong. Because the Bible's really clear. And God blesses people. And God is wonderful, and God provides, and that's great. And God's not opposed to wealth and prosperity, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But God wants to be number one in our life, and he wants our hearts. The money stuff, that's separate. That's a whole nother issue. God wants to be number one. You could be here today and love God sincerely and serve him with all your heart and still wish you had more money. That doesn't mean God doesn't love you. Paul lived in prisons and bounced from city to city and worked as a tent maker. Jesus said, "Foxes have holes, but I have nowhere to put my head." Your physical wealth accumulation is not indicative of how much Jesus loves you. And if someone's taught you that, they manipulated Jesus for personal gain. It's not what it's about. So Jesus responds to this guy. He responds to the problem with a principle, a really good principle. Verses 14 and 15, Jesus says, "Who made me a judge or an arbitrator over you?" Verse 15, here's the principle. "Take heed and beware of covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. Take heed and beware of covetousness, for your life does not consist of your stuff." Jesus said there's more to your life than your stuff. Take heed and beware. A couple years ago, what is it, maybe a decade ago now? Hurricanes Lee and Irene back to back came up and ripped through this area as well. And we certainly didn't get it as bad as other places in the country. And even right here locally, Schenectady, Albany, we didn't get it as bad as they did just a little bit to the west of us with massive flooding. And I remember when these hurricanes were coming through that I was paying attention to the weather, duh, because there was a tornado watch. A tornado watch means the situation is favorable for a tornado to develop. That the humidity and the heat and the winds and the way everything is coming together, a tornado watch means situations are favorable for this to occur, so stay alert. But then we learned there's also tornado warnings. As responsible adults, we should know the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning. Tornado watch, don't even cancel the tea time. Just pay attention, make sure it's not real bad. Tornado warning means we've spotted a tornado. It's doing the tornado thing, you know, the funnel cloud thing. It's touching down, it's causing damage. A watch means it might happen. A warning means it's happening. Take shelter. Jesus starts this parable with this: beware and take heed. Be warned and be on the lookout for. Jesus hits both of them, both a watch and a warning. Because this man, the situation in his life and the way he was thinking was something to be cautious of. And then by the words he spoke, Jesus gives him a warning that what I'm warning you about is already happening, and you have to do something to take care of the situation. Jesus lets him know, beware, be warned of covetousness. Jesus explained to him, there is a storm in your heart that is going to do damage. Don't just be aware that it can happen, it's happening. Beware of covetousness. Now, what's covetousness? It's defined as an insatiable desire for worldly gain. I think we can pick one word and define covetousness. The word is more. I want more. I don't want less. I don't even want the same. I want more. I want bigger. I want newer. Even if the previous was enough, I still want more. An insatiable desire for worldly gain. Covetousness, made popular by your favorite commandment, thou shalt not covet. That desire, that want, that I have to have something. The 10 Commandments tells us, take warning of this. This will hurt you. Why? Because this is spiritual. So I'm talking about your money today. I'm talking about your heart. Jesus warns us about a condition that not only was there 2,000 years ago when he taught, it was there before that, and it's here even to this day. Covetousness in our heart, that worldly desire for more. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 5. Paul writes, for you know that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man who is an idolater has any inheritance in the kingdom. Paul connects coveting with idolatry. The greatest sin through the Old Testament was the sin of idolatry, when they would do what? They would worship other gods. Paul connects that constant desire for more with idolatry. Why? Because it's a heart condition, because this is spiritual. Thou shalt not covet. The Bible talks a ton about greed, about envy. And Jesus warns us, this will mess you up. In his letter to Timothy, Paul writes how many have been caught in the trap or in the snare of riches. And for some, it's caused them great harm. It's even shipwrecked their faith. Because if you don't get this right, this hurts your family. If you don't get this right, this will hurt your marriage. If our attitudes on this are wrong, this is going to hurt our children. Oh, but they're so young and cute and squishy. But if we don't train them right and raise them properly, they too will have to battle this covetousness. It hurts our families. Most of all, it can hurt your faith. So Jesus warns us, we have to figure this thing out. And we see signs of this all over the place in our society. The last time you got your driveway sealed, you noticed this was a problem. Keeping up with the Joneses, right? We just had the driveway sealed up at Bethel, Saratoga. Looks great. Sealed and striped. Looks like a new place. But I remember a few years ago, one guy on the street got their driveway sealed, and like that week, 4 other houses were like, oh yeah, we got to get our driveway sealed too, right? It's not just a colonial manor thing. That happens all over the place. Why? Well, I can't have their driveway looking better than my driveway. You mean the thing you literally walk on, drive across? Because we get this mindset. It's got to look a certain way. It's got to be a certain way. We like nice things. And nothing is necessarily wrong with that. But it comes down to, where is our heart? What are our priorities? And are we battling and fighting against this covetousness in our heart? So Jesus goes from the principle and he shares the parable with them. Let me just share with you the parable again quickly. The ground of a certain man, a rich man, yielded plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I'll do this. I'll pull down my barns. I'll build greater ones. There I'll store all my crops and goods. And I will say to my soul, who talks to themselves like that? So I said to myself, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease. Take it easy, right? Eat, drink, and be merry. Now that sounds like a great plan for this afternoon. It sounds like a horrible way to live life. Verse 20, but God said to him, fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you have provided? Now, when God calls you a fool, in my limited experience, that's worse than when just like your buddy does it, or a person at work, or even your spouse, okay? Like nobody likes to be called a fool, but when Almighty God calls you a fool, that's a problem. That is an issue. God speaks to this man and he says, fool. What was the problem here in this parable? It says in the beginning, the guy was rich. That wasn't the problem. It said then that his crops yielded plentifully. This too was not the problem. See, the problem in this passage, it wasn't his planning. I think the Bible supports us being smart in planning. It wasn't even the prosperity. We know Scripture supports hard work, doing what we can, providing for our family. That's all in there. It wasn't the planning. It wasn't the prosperity. The problem here were the priorities. The priorities were all out of whack, and God calls him a fool. That's a biblical term. I don't know if you knew that. That word fool has some significant meaning in the scripture. If you like to read from the Old Testament, probably the book of Psalms is one of your favorite. And Psalms 14:1 gives us the definition for a fool. You know it too. I'll start it for you. It's like children's church. I'll start the verse, you finish it. A fool says in his heart, there is no God. Psalms gives us the definition of what a fool is. God calls this man a fool, not because he had a lot, not because he was successful. Those things were okay. And there's Bible stories of many men in the Old Testament who were very successful. That wasn't the issue. The issue was priorities. The issue was, with his successfulness, he was living his life and making decisions like a fool, like there was no God. This is spiritual. And here's the thing. This is why it's important for us. Jesus shared this with a farmer 2,000 years ago. I'm thinking to myself, how many rich farmers were there? I don't know. That's just how my mind is. Farmers, right? Guys who wear in overalls. Take it easy on him, Jesus. Pitchfork in his hand. Probably has some hay or something. I don't know. But when we're blessed with more than what we need for the day, we're rich. When we have stuff saved up for tomorrow, if you're not worried about what you're going to eat tomorrow, you are in a very small global percentage. When we live in the most prosperous time, in the most prosperous nation in the history of the world, you better believe this teaching applies to you and I as much as it did to some farmer from the first century. Because rich isn't a number. Because you would define that as more than what you have now. That's how you would define rich. That desire for more that plagues all of us. If you make $50,000 a year, you wish it was $80,000 a year. You make $80,000 a year, you wish it was $100,000. You make $100,000 a year, you wish it was $1 million a year. More. It's not about the numbers. It's about the heart. It's about the priority. Are we fools in that we're living our life and handling our finances like there is no God? Or are we making God our top priority? 3 mistakes of the rich fool. 3 mistakes of the rich fool for you this morning. Mistake number 1, he did not recognize God as the source of his blessings. He didn't recognize God as the source of all the good things he had in his life. And I heard a little over the crowd. Like, oh, we agree. Yes, God gave us everything. So you're with me. We've established that. God is the one who provides for us. God is the reason we have what we have. He failed to recognize God's role in any of this. And I know how you're thinking. You're like, well, God didn't make that dinner. I made that myself. I earned that money with my own 2 hands. Who gave you 2 hands? Yeah, shut up. I did that myself. Who gave you air to breathe? Yeah, him, again. Everything good that we have comes from God. If you are strong and healthy enough to go out and work and earn a living, who gave you your strength and your health and the very breath that you breathe? It is from God. The one who gives us the ability to do so. The one who provides for us in every season of life. Recognizing God's role in our lives. This is spiritual. Like Paul equated it to idolatry when we get this wrong. Part of handling this stuff correctly is understanding everything we have is from God. Every single thing that we have. And he doesn't need any of it. There is nothing that you have or own or have purchased There's nothing you have that God needs. He's not like, oh, I wish I had that car. He doesn't care, okay? Literally transported by fiery chariots with angels. He doesn't care about what you drive. But he wants your heart. In fact, he wants our hearts so much so that he sent his only son to die on a cross. Not so he can get our stuff. God's not trying to get in your pocket. The church isn't trying to get in your pocket. God wants your heart. God desperately wants to be number one. He wants to be that priority in your life. The rich fool didn't recognize God as the source of blessing. Second mistake he made. The rich fool thought everything that he had was for him. Take a minute, chew on that. It's uncomfortable at the beginning, but it'll go down. The rich fool thought everything that he possessed was for him. And I understand some of you are sweating in here right now, and it's not because of the temperature. You're like, whoa, that's hitting a little close to home. That all the blessings he had accrued in his life, he made the mistake. And this is what happens when you're a fool. This is what happens when you live like there's no God. You think everything you've been blessed with is just for you. Oh, well, look at that stroke of good luck, that good fortune I've run into. Clearly, God must love me more than everyone. So this is all for me, and I will just enjoy it. I will take it easy. I will eat and drink and be merry. Maybe play a couple extra rounds of golf. It's all good. The fool says in his heart, there's no God. The rich fool lived like there was no God. His second mistake was he thought it was all for him. I want you to know, if God has blessed you with more than you need, there is a good chance, like a really strong, high likelihood, that he has done that for you so you can be a blessing for someone else, so he can use you. And listen, it's a very good thing to be a person that God can use. This church, I'll brag on this church, not because of me, because you guys give. Most of my giving goes to the Assemblies of God, so you guys give here. When we take what comes in here and we use it to further the kingdom, when we use it to plant churches, when we use it to help support ministries rescuing people out of addiction, when we use it to help widows and orphans in Haiti, when we use it for the kingdom, we become that conduit that God can bless. I'll order my jet later, but for now, it's not about how rich the pastoral staff is. I'm not inviting you to my mansion. No. When we take what God gives us and we use it for his purposes, God sees that and says, I can give him more. So when we throw out in one Sunday with no warning, hey, we're raising some money to plant churches, and $23,000 comes in a month, that's God saying, I can trust this church to promote my kingdom over their own stuff. You become a conduit. Instead of thinking everything that comes in is for you, you become a conduit that God can use. And when you're that person, I'm not surprised when God continues to bless and continues to provide, because you can be a conduit for what God's doing. This fool made the mistake of thinking everything that he had was for him. That's where covetousness gets us. That's where greed gets into our heart. Third mistake that he made is this: he chose to hoard instead of honor. He chose to hoard for himself instead of honoring God. When we hoard, we're anxious. We worry that we don't have quite enough. And remember, Jesus literally just taught on birds and said, God takes care of the birds, he'll take care of you. Half, Jesus, I need half. We hoard because we're anxious, because we worry, because we think, oh, we're not going to have enough. Or we're greedy because we've bought the lie. Jesus says, Our life does not consist of the abundance of our possessions. But we've bought that lie. Our culture tells us that it does. The house that you live in, the car that you drive, it's a direct reflection of the kind of person you are. Watch those commercials for Lincolns with Matthew McConaughey smugly talking. Got a toothpick in his mouth with that stupid accent. Because if you have this car, you'll be this kind of person. That's not the case, is it? We know that. Our life is more than the stuff that we own. Pastor David's a great man. His Honda Civic is a piece of trash. It is an embarrassingly garbage vehicle. If we're taking a special offering, it's for that. But that's not his character. See, that's not who he is. The car that you drive, the home that you own, the job that you hold, the number of zeros at the end of your tax statement, that doesn't define your character. Those are separate things. Jesus warns us that our life does not consist of the stuff that we have. Because you have a lot of stuff doesn't necessarily mean you're blessed. In fact, let me take this in a really dark direction. If you have a lot of stuff and you're not honoring God, I don't think God's the source of your stuff. Uncomfortable. Let's dedicate babies. That was happier. If you have a lot of stuff, but you're not honoring God with it, who do we know that could be after your soul that would want to distract you and shipwreck you for all eternity with some stuff? Honor God. Not about being greedy, not about hoarding or worrying or being anxious. It's about honoring God with everything. When we handle our stuff, when we handle our wealth and our finances and our material possessions as if God doesn't matter, we're the fool. God will never take second place. God will never be the backseat driver. God wants your heart, not your money. God wants your heart. God wants to be number one in your life. So there's a term, it's an accounting term, it's called a forensic audit. And I made the mistake in first service of saying, I've never been audited. I have. I was informed by my wife. We've been audited multiple times. I was like, really? I had no idea. Could tell you who does the checkbook in our family. As a pastor, nonprofit, the church, we're always under scrutiny to make sure we're not, even when we buy or sell property, it has to go to the state attorney general to make sure that a nonprofit's not trying to cut corners and get ahead, because what businessman would ever cut a corner to get ahead, take advantage of something? That never happens, right? Forensic audit, they do a deep dive into your finances to figure out everything, and when they do this, they figure out everything they need to know about you. They know where you're spending your money. They know what you're paying in taxes. They know what you made. They know what you said you made. They know if those numbers don't match. Deep dive, forensic audit. What if there was a forensic audit done by Jesus on our finances to see if there was enough evidence that he was the Lord of our life, that he was the top priority in our life? See, when it comes to the handling of our finances, that's what it's all about. Is our faith, is our devotion to God obvious? If you were to just, and you can do this for yourself. You don't need like a angelic accountant to come down from heaven and figure this out. You could look at your monthly budget. You can look at your yearly, you could look at what comes in, and you can look at that and say, okay, honestly, how is God being honored here in this ledger? And you could answer that question for yourself. Because this is all about our heart. This is all about the spiritual. This is all about what Jesus truly wants from us. He wants to be number one. So much so that with all the cares of this world, Jesus singled out this one because he knew it had the potential to choke us out and make us unfruitful. Take heed and beware of covetousness. Call up the worship team as I give you the last part here in verse 21. Verse 21, Jesus lays out the prognosis for us. We understand what this parable is about, what this parable isn't about. It's not anti-planning. It's not anti-success. It's about priorities. It's about Jesus wants to be number one in your life. And is there evidence to show that Jesus is number one in your life? Or are you making the same mistakes as the rich fool did? Verse 21, Jesus wraps it up like this. He says, so is he. What does that mean? It means that we're also a fool if we lay up treasure for ourselves and is not rich towards God. Jesus gets right to the heart of the matter, the thing that's most important, being rich towards God. What does that look like? That means God's number one in our life. That means that we love him. That means that we live for him, that our life belongs to him. It's Matthew 6:33, and I reference it often. It says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. That's a life verse, friend. If you're here today, young or old, whether you consider yourself rich or not, we're all rich. I know some of you young people are here, maybe college kids, you're like, nope, I'm actually super poor. I actually owe other people money. I get that. Now is the time to get this cemented in our mindset. Now is the time to understand this concept, and because this isn't about a special offering. This is about making sure God is first, because this has such tremendous potential to hurt our faith. How many marriages have we counseled where problems with finances was right at the top of the list of what was causing it? Broken families, problems with children. How many times does it all come back to this? When we have the wrong ideas, the wrong mindset. So Jesus warns us explicitly, we have to get this right. For ourselves, yes. For our faith, yes. For our marriage, for our families, for our children, yes, yes, yes. To represent Jesus well in a world that is full of every sort of greed and impurity, we have to get this right. It's our heart condition. It's our priorities. It's making sure that in our life, and see, this is a finances sermon today, but no matter what we were talking about, this applies. Making sure how we live our life and the decisions that we make honor God and make it apparent to anyone who's looking that Jesus is first in our life. It just happens to be a money sermon, but that's everything, church. That's every decision we make. That's everything we talk about. Making sure Jesus is first and making sure that we represent him well. Is God number one in your life? That's the question. Or is it all about your future and your plans and your wealth and your situation? Is there room for God in all of that? God wants to be number one. He wants to be the most important thing in your life. And when it comes to finances and when it comes to anything, they all have to take a backseat to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Jesus is first. Jesus must be number one. As we close this morning, I'll ask you to bow your heads with me, and then we're going to pray together, and the team will play a final song for us. And if you're here this morning, I want you to know the most important thing is that your relationship with God is where it is supposed to be. That Jesus is first in your life, whether it be an issue with finances or anything else. The issue is always priority. Is God number one in your life? If not, something else is, and that something else is an idol. Bible makes that very clear. So make God number one in your life. And maybe you're here today and your relationship with God isn't where it needs to be. I want you to know this morning, right in this room, right from your seat, you can call on the name of Jesus and be forgiven for everything you've ever done. Word of God tells us whoever calls on his name will be saved. You can call out to Jesus right now and say, Jesus, I don't know you like I should. Come and save me. And Jesus will come to you. You can say, Jesus, I'm not putting you number one like I should. Forgive me. And Jesus will forgive you. Jesus, I need you in my life. I need you in my marriage. I need you in my family. And he who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Call out to him this morning. Call out to him right where you are, with whatever you're feeling, with whatever you're going through, as the Holy Spirit is knocking on the door of your heart this morning, telling you to surrender, telling you to give your life to him, or maybe just telling you to honor God with all of it, to put him first for now, for tomorrow, for the future, to put God first in your life. Don't be so distracted with the cares of this world that we miss out on what God has for us. We miss out on being the men and women. We miss out on being the church that God has called us to be because we're distracted by covetousness, by greed. Would you stand together with me? Let's pray together, and then we'll honor God with our worship before we go. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for your word. We thank you for this parable. We thank you for this powerful teaching of Jesus that challenges us right to our very core, that every person in this room, young or old, male or female, doesn't matter. God, you're challenging our thoughts. You're challenging this culture. You're challenging the way we approach life. God, we want to do it all for your glory. I thank you for your word. I thank you that in your word, you're not afraid to call out our heart conditions. You're not afraid to warn us of things that can potentially ruin our faith, our marriages, our family. But God, you love us enough to give us your truth. Lord, I pray that this morning, all across this place, all across our campuses, all across the online audience, Lord, that we would commit ourselves to honoring you with everything that we have and making sure that you are the top priority in our life. Jesus, I thank you for your word. Change us, convict us, make us more like you. Be glorified in us, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's worship him as we close.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we Father, thank you, Lord, that we can seek first the kingdom of God and know that you will take care of everything else. Lord, that when we set our eyes on you, we don't have to worry about the things of this world. We know that you are taking care of us. We praise you and we thank you for that this morning. Be blessed by our praise in your name. Amen. Have a great week, church. We will see you next time.